Welcome to the Bobcast. We are now in 2015. So, good luck to everybody in the start of a new season. This episode, we're going to talk about some of the big trades made so far in the preseason. Or it's not really preseason, in the offseason. This has been a pretty interesting offseason. A lot of guys have been dealt. Teams are in full rebuild mode. Some teams are starting to come on the come, want to start competing, like Cincinnati, and so you have like Toronto going down, Cincinnati want to come up. So you have a lot of teams active so far this whatever. The first big trade that was made this season was between Boston and Cleveland, and the principles in the deal were really it was Adrian Gonzalez dealt for Kevin Youkilis and Zealous Wheeler. I commented on the boards on this, even though I had no right to really. I thought this was a bad trade for Boston. Adrian Gonzalez is the best player down the deal. Gonzalez, 32 years old, only making $9 million a year. 88 contacts, 70 gap, 91 power, 100 I. Hit 310 with a 410 on base last year. 30 homers, 109 RBIs, 105 runs scored. So Gonzalez is a very good player, which, yes, as Boston points out, is only a first baseman. So Boston gets back a player who plays third in Youkilis. But Youkilis, I don't know, he's hit 270, 380 on base, 18 homers, 101 RBI last year, so he had a pretty productive season. Actually, more productive than he did in any of his years in Boston to start his career. To start the league. They also get Zealous Wheeler, Boston, a decent second baseman. Nothing special, really. Only had 163 plate appearances last year for Cleveland, so I'd say that this deal has a slight edge towards Cleveland, but Boston doesn't really care what I think. Second deal made that I think is of import was trade between Baltimore, me, and the new Pittsburgh GM. Steph sent me catcher Daniel Mengden, and I sent her two okay players, Josh Bell, my third baseman last year, and a third baseman, and Neftali Soto. I really liked Mengden. I went after him hard once I recognized what he was. He was only an 8.44 prospect with 100 I, and but his his ratings were above his talents. So second I got him, obviously I T-equaled all his categories. Cost me 800 points, but now he's a 9.65, 10.7 catcher who's like very developed. And with a lefty righty, if I decide to spend one on him, he's a 10 contact catcher, 11.95 contact with like 100 I. So I like Mengden. He's my catcher of the future. But if you want to read more about that, you'll have to watch my video. The next big trade was, well, there were a few big trades. Washington and Arizona made a trade where they dealt prospects really back and forth. The next big trade, at least in my opinion, that had a lot of in-play was again between Arizona, but this time dealing with Sean, our commissioner. KC, Arizona. Kansas City got in the deal a very, very good second baseman prospect in Colin Hoops. He was the 17th overall pick last season. 9.5, 10, 8.7. Not really good defender, but you can work on that second base. 9.5, 10. That's great production from second base if you could get that. They also got in the deal Barton Bull, a good young pitching prospect, 8.98, which is solid young starter. Got a first round draft pick in the deal. And Arizona got in return Lino Santiago. Casey talks about how the rotation's crowded. They don't really have a need for him, or that he's expendable, but he's a hell of a pitcher. This is some deal for Arizona. Santiago, 25 years old, just turned 25. 10 talents, 93 stuff, 94 control, 85 movement. Guy's an ace, any way you cut it. If he gets the movement up, then he's 90 plus in all categories. It's a hell of a deal for Arizona. And Sean obviously knows what he's doing. He had the guy to deal. He had space, so he was able to deal him. So he was not the only ace dealt. The guy they named the freaking pitching award after, the Cy Young himself, was dealt. Cy Young, I see why Chicago dealt them. Same reason they dealt Wart last season. They're not ready to compete in that division. They're easily the fifth best team in that division. So why not deal a young pitcher for undeveloped specs? Young, though, is 21 years old, 88, 91, 87. Really developed, 9.10.9 talents, 10 endurance, so he's a horse. Pitched a 3.47 ERA and 17 starts last year. He's a really good pitcher. They got a whole heap in a specs back in return from Minnesota. Cole is a really good young third baseman spec, 8.58, 6.8. Price is a good reliever spec, even though I don't know if he's ever going to actually develop. He's 10.6, 10. Hedges is a nice catching spec, 9.58, 7.8, and he's well developed, so he's pretty good. Yoshimune is a 4-star spec, I don't know, and Volmuth is another 4-star spec. So he got a bunch back in return, like he did, and of course picks, first, second, and third rounders, just like he got back in the Wart deal. So he's trading his young pitchers for a whole heaping of prospects, which absolutely makes sense. Minnesota's been very busy. I mean, they also made another trade where they traded away Utley and Bartlett, two middle infielders, but two aging middle infielders. Utley is 36 years old, is not the player he once was, even though really he's never been the player that he is in real life in this league. Bartlett, same thing also. Bartlett was a really, really good young hitter. He only 271 last season, so he traded away a 35 and 36-year-old. Got back a decent prospect in the deal, but mainly he got those guys off his roster, which was good. Also dealt recently, Iwakuma, a pitcher, has been on the move quite a bit. He dealt twice this year. Arizona dealt him to Cincinnati, pretty much just to dump his contract. 19 million a year for 2 years. So he got rid of him, and then he was then dealt away. First he went. Let's get it straight. He went from Iwakuma. Oh yes, that's because I'm looking at the wrong player right now. That makes sense. Iwakuma was dealt first from Arizona to Cincinnati as a dump, and he gave away some players with that. And then Cincinnati dealt him away to the Angels for pretty much free. So good job by Cincinnati picking up like a free prospect in the double move there, in the give and then give again. Next deal, I mean, the Cubs and KC made a deal. Cubs dealt a couple of prospects and some. Cubs dealt a couple of pitching prospects. One a starter, and the other one also a starter. 2 starters for decent spec and a couple picks. After that, let's see. It hasn't been processed yet, but there have been other trades made. Other pretty important trades. Boston and Baltimore made a trade, even though we had a little bit of spat on the boards. We were still able to pull off a deal. Boston sent over their first-round pick in 2016 and the right fielder Ronald Abad, ace prospect, 4-star spec. And that first probably isn't going to be that good since Boston has retooled. Looking to have a really good, probably might have a really, really good season this coming year. They got back in return Jose Reyes. Reyes is a still really good player. Helped Baltimore win the World Series this past season. 31 years old, making $15 million a year. But he had his best season this past season, so it's probably his early career struggles are probably just something having to do with him playing in the Shea Stadium or whatever the hell Citi Field. Last year he had 285 with 350 on base, 97 RBI, 88 runs. So Ray's still a really good player, tons of speed, and has pop for a shortstop, which is something really good to have. Baltimore dealt him because they felt they didn't have any more room for him. So that's a pretty interesting trade. Some other deals that are worth talking about, really. Let's see. Let's take a look at the recent trades made. That's not really much. That's not really much. Cincinnati made another trade. They're looking to compete. Cincinnati made a trade with Evan with Cleveland. Cleveland sends DH Matt Laporta in return for a relief spec and a second base John White and some points. Laporta is a really solid player. I could see why Evan Mayfield doesn't have much room for anymore, especially since he's not much besides a DH. But Laporta 2 years ago hit 320 with a 400 on base, and this past season was not a good one. He had 226 to 296 on base, so that's pretty bad. But definitely play for Cincinnati. Cincinnati now looking to compete. That's a pretty decent deal for them. So that's pretty much it for the trades made so far, although we're probably going to be seeing a whole heaping more to be made in the coming future because Toronto's now looking to deal all its players. What that means is going to happen is you're going to see a ton of talent. Oh, I didn't discuss the Joey Bats trade. Ooh, can't let that one slide. The biggest trade, I guess, of the preseason, or the preseason, I have to stop calling it that. Biggest trade of so far in the season is Minnesota sending Jose Bautista to Boston for 3 players, really. Sustiago, the first guy they got, is a really good starting pitching prospect, 65, 36, 64 developed, so there's development questions about him. But he has 10, 8, 10. He's pretty good. DH Allen Craig is a Mighty fine replacement. I mean, if you're going to deal a guy like Joey Bats, nice to get a DH back who is 98 in contact, 68 gap, 85 power, 60 ice to avoid K. So it's nice to get someone back like that. Also, he also got another really power hitter in Carlos Peguero, 78, 61, 98 power. So he dealt away one of maybe the few best players in the game in Batista, but he got back in the deal multiple players who are good. I mean, Batista had a down season, at least down for him. His power numbers been going down every season, but this past year he had 270 with a 405 on base, 35 homers, 100 RBI. So he's still an incredibly productive player, but he is 34 years old and a free agent at the end of this year. Obviously, Boston's counting on re-signing him. Whether they be able to do so, we shall see. But he is loyal, so they probably will be able to. Yes, that's pretty much it for this episode. Thanks for watching, anyone who did, and good luck everyone in 2015.